Three, two, one, and we're live, Paul. Welcome to a very special episode of the WrestleVlog Sessions, our Worlds Collide episode, part 2, with Talking Crap. Alright, no problem. Alright, guys, so we are joined with our friends on the other side of the pond for the Talking Crap podcast. We are joined by Jazzy Josh Porter.
Hello, I've just muted myself. Wait, you nearly got us sued then by saying talking S.
I know, I had to catch myself. And we are also joined by life coach Lucas Jackson.
Hey guys, good to be here. Ready to talk some crap about some wrestling. That's what we do on our podcast, so hopefully we're the same here.
Yeah. And it's a very special episode, and like I mentioned on social media, I'm really proud to bring these guys with us. Now we're very honored to be in their show. Now they're in our show, and we're doing here something very special, an international, like Chase mentioned, World Collide episode. I don't really seen that no one else in Texas has ever done. Am I right, Chase?
Yeah, no, I believe I don't want to say we're the first, because for all I know, some podcasts probably has done this before. But for us, it's very special. I'm very excited to talk about what we have on the table today, and I'm very, very excited to have Lucas and Josh here of Talking Crap here on the podcast.
So yeah,
Thank you
guys.
It's appreciated.
It's great to be here. Like, I was toying with the idea of potentially doing some form of international thing. And I know Julio and myself have been texting back and forth over social media saying, let's do this, let's do that. And we finally decided and got around to it.
Yeah, it's something great, and hopefully we could work on more stuff. Exchange talent, get some Texas talent in to their show, some of their talent to our show. Just get a network working, and just get things going. I don't know if you guys haven't heard the first part. Go check it out. It's in there. Uh, excuse me, guys. Is it y'all put it on your website, or where do y'all put your episodes?
Be up on YouTube, and I'll link the link on Facebook as well.
Okay, so their first part, there'll be where we talk about death matches, strong style, and British wrestling. It'll be on their YouTube page. We'll put the link on the description. But in this part 2, we're gonna talk about American wrestling and Lucha Libre. So Chase, you wanna start it off?
Yeah, right on, man. At first, I just kind of want to kind of break some ice and kind of get y'all's thoughts. What are y'all's thoughts on Lucha Libre and American wrestling as a whole?
I'll start.
Yeah, Lucas, you go first.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of American wrestling, that's obviously the wrestling which I know and love, and that's the bread and butter of obviously my enjoyment of pro wrestling has come a lot from the American side of things. In terms of Lucha Libre as a style, as we're probably going to get into a bit more, like it's not my favorite style, and I think it's very important that gets acknowledged as we go on with this. I do like some of it, but there's some gripes that I had with it, which perhaps we're going to address obviously as the episode goes on. But I think that there's definitely a certain level of respect. And we touched upon this in episode 1 when we saw much Japanese wrestlers having an amazing kind of amount of respect and admiration, and the way they treat the business as a sport, like a legitimate sport. It's the same way with the Mexican Lucha Libre stuff, from what I know, of the fact that people who are very, very big in Mexico are treated like bigger than some of the celebrities and football players. It's a real big deal, which, we don't necessarily get with some of the American names outside of the massive kind of Stone Colds and Hulk Hogan's, of their days. Whereas nowadays, I don't think people are going, I don't think Roman Reigns is stopping traffic anywhere. I don't think John Moxley is, afraid to kind of leave his house. but I think obviously in Mexico it's such a traditional and a respect kind of thing. These wrestlers are just larger than life.
Yeah, and
I'm kind of on the same understanding. Like, American wrestling is a lot more theatrical. Like, there's a lot more fireworks into it. They love their kind of larger than life characters. In Lucha Libre, they don't have larger than life characters. That it's just them, but emphasized. It is, my understanding, it is near enough a religion in Mexico and South America for Lucha Libre as a whole to be near enough a religion.
yeah, and they value a lot in Mexico and anywhere where they practice lucha libre. They value it a lot. They respect it. It's a culture right here, as most of our viewers know. Chase is from San Antonio, but still lucha libre is more of a thing over there. Well, not as much as here. Here's a bigger thing. It's a bigger deal. Here, before the pandemic, there'll be a lot of shows around flea markets. There'll be pop-up shows, and literally in someone's backyard. There'll be shows everywhere, lucha shows, and there's also people sending lucha merch. There's stores that they have lucha merch and stuff, and usually here as well as in Mexico, wherever they practice lucha, it's a big respect, especially if there is like a pretty great match, the match that a lot of people love, that they would literally throw money in the ring for the luchadores to take home. They'll put up $1, $10, $5, whatever, and they'll just put it in ring. That's a sign of respect that they earn from the crowd, saying, "Oh, I like your match. Here you go. Here's some money." And it's something I like as well, because it's something that the wrestlers do deserve, that and love, that I see that the fans are giving out their money, and it's pretty much saying this match is money's worth.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like a bigger deal, like particularly in certain parts of the states, I'm guessing, that have, I guess, like you say, Texas, obviously very connected to Mexico, and other parts of the country too. I think as well, seeing mainstream wrestlers, people or wrestlers end up from Lucha Libre ending up going mainstream. That's always going to obviously keep it, I guess, very popular. Where I've always seen it is, and happens over here, that whatever's popular in the mainstream promotions, it ends up filtering down to obviously the smaller promotions, independents. So obviously people obviously will want a copy or want a piece. Punters or punters, or I don't know, or fans you would call them. That they want a piece of obviously the mainstream promotion, but at a cheaper price. And so I can see that's why it's definitely popular, particularly obviously around where you're based, I guess.
Chase, you in there?
I pulled another shattered glass.
Come on, man.
But to kind of emphasis on what y'all said about how it's, lucha libre here is, it's a religion, or it could be considered one. Like I do want to like emphasize like how popular it is. Like Julio mentioned, I'm based in San Antonio, a little bit ways from Mexico, the border, but it's still very, very prominent, very prevalent. Like I'll take a walk downtown and I'll stop by a few stores where they're not wrestling stores, but they still have like a lucha libre masks like for sale, or they have like shirt depicting luchadors. It's very much part of the mainstream. Like hell, one of our our big one of our biggest conventions, Alamo City Comic Con, their mascot is a luchador.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know that. That's
so. Yeah, it's mainstream to us, so like getting an outside perspective, it's one of those things where it's like, for us, this is very, very special. Like for example, one thing I feel like not a lot of people get is the mask thing. People just kind of see the masks and they're just like, oh, it's a thing, when really it has a deeper meaning. The mask is the wrestler's identity. Like getting their mask taken off or like ripped or torn in some ways, like super disrespectful or like super like whoa, that's taboo. You know, like for example in AEW when I believe it was who was it? It was the Lucha Brothers versus I want to say the Young Bucks.
No, I don't think it was the Young Bucks because I don't think the Young Bucks would have done that.
It was some tag team where they
It was a
unmasked.
heel team.
Yeah, yeah. I remember it was, but they unmasked. I want to say it was Phoenix, and you know, to a lot of people, it's just kind of like, oh, it's a dirty heel move. But for us, like who kind of like understand it, it's
It's
like,
like
whoa, hold up,
blasphemy.
that is like absolute blasphemy. Like you might as well just like taken away like everything he had to own. You know, it's
Essentially, his
ruled.
identity.
It literally, his identity was just stolen right from underneath them.
So I've got two very good questions. One,
What's that?
so I assume you're aware of El Hijo del Fantasma.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
What?
from NXT.
Yeah, but obviously he was quite big in Mexico. So what's your thoughts on him unmasking and changing his gimmick to an unmasked persona when we know he was a luchador?
Andrade
Good.
did the same though, didn't they? Andrade.
Yeah, but Andrade I don't think did it in WWE.
Yeah, he didn't have the mask in WWE, but he got signed and then obviously dropped the mask. And he was a
Yeah,
mask wrestler for a number of years.
yeah, but I don't think he did that as like a heel move. I think he just did that to change
No,
off
yeah,
his
true.
gimmick.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
Like
good,
as a heel move, what are your thoughts on that?
good thing you guys asked that, especially about El Hijo de Fantasma. Because yesterday, uh, I was at a lucha store and I was talking to one of the guys there. We were talking about masks and stuff, and he was telling me about El Hijo de Fantasma. They're saying that he was telling me that WWE doesn't really honor the masked luchador. Like they don't really give too much values in the masked wrestler, other than just leaving the mask to Rey Mysterio, of course, because Rey Mysterio is a big legend in WWE, and as well as the Lucha House Party. But he said it's kind of a little bit of disrespect that they took off the mask from El Hijo de Fantasma. It pretty much like drops the value of what he is, and I just find it as how do you say it, as not much as of a heel turn, but like I feel like he would have still kept this mask. But I don't like the idea of that WWE isn't really forcing too much of like mass luchadors. It ain't giving it much of an
No, I think
exposure.
WWE's issue is they don't look at luchador or lucha libre as a different type of wrestling. They just look at it as like, oh, that's just what they call it in Mexico. Like
Uh-huh.
to them, a
Mm-hmm.
luchador is just another cruiserweight.
Yeah, it's just
Like they
another.
don't care.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh. So
I, I,
yeah, that's the thing with uh WWE. I don't. It's not much of a character thing. It's just that more production, and I forgot the word, but of those people that are in charge of everything. That's
I
Character
disagree,
development.
Josh, with that. I
Go on.
think I think WWE do know. Thing is, I think WWE do know and are aware of kind of all the styles of wrestling. They don't care is the difference. I think
Yeah, that's what I
that's
mean.
more
Like
the point. I
they
think
Mm-hmm.
don't
WWE
look at
knew.
it
Yeah,
as the way they should.
I agree with Lucas on this one. I agree.
Oh, thank you. But I think I think end of the day they know that obviously in Mexico there's these rules, and Triple H in particular, he's especially with NXT, what been trying to do, he has been trying to show respect to the business, and obviously that's whether NXT has worked or not is another kind of topic. But in terms of Triple H, I think he's very wrestling minded, and he would know because he personally signed Mystico, who became Sin Cara, and obviously left the company under kind of dubious kind of circumstances without achieving half of what really they thought would happen. But I think what it is with WWE, they struck gold with Rey Mysterio in terms of merchandise sales, and no disrespect here to Rey Mysterio, but his main roster push in terms of a main star push came because Eddie Guerrero died. And if that didn't happen, I don't believe that WWE would have allowed him to keep the mask for much longer, or that he would have stayed in WWE for as long as he has done, as he has been a mainstay for a long time, living off mainstream success. But WWE, I think they don't care about the mask thing. You know, that's what they got Andrade to unmask before he even debuted. They got, obviously, Phantasma. So I can't pronounce it like you can, Julio.
I think as well, if I'm not mistaken, Alberto Del Rio.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure. I think he was masked. I
Yeah,
can't
he
recall,
was.
but yeah,
He was masked for quite a while because in his MMA career, mainly in Mexico, he wore a mask during his MMA fights. And obviously, that's a bit of a controversial topic in the MMA world, but that's a story for another day on a different podcast. But yeah, Alberto Del Rio was also a luchador at some point or another with a mask.
yeah. But yeah, like how gotta agree with y'all. They recognize, they know that there's different styles, but they don't respect it too much, especially because mask and we mentioned Rey Mysterio. We were talking about earlier losing the mask. I think I was watching the DVD with Ray. I think he was talking before he jumped to WWE. He was talking about that time he lost his mask at WCW. He didn't really mention that he lost it there, but he was just saying that the mask represents everything to a luchador personality and everything. Once you take it off for him, like it's pretty much over for them. Their career is
in terms
already
of
done.
the WCW mask removal, I think the story goes that the cruiserweights never ever got storylines in WCW. They were seen as opening show kind of curtain jerkers, and the whole belief was that the new curator that came up with it was that if we can make the characters real and edgy, that would make the audience tune in and care about their programming. But what they forgot about with the cruiserweight division is that people watched it because it was the best thing on the show, regardless of whether there were masks and gimmicks and all this kind of, kind of theatrical side to it. People watched it because it was good wrestling. Billy Kidman, Juventud, Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, the list goes on and on. They were just very good at what they did. And that's what was a drawing point. And Ray, I think because he lost the mask, and with the mask, like you said, we've established like it's part of their identity. And if you do watch Rey Mysterio Mask, like don't get me wrong, it's still very watchable and still very impressive the stuff that he's doing. But there's that something missing where it's like this is not a Rey Mysterio match almost. This is like someone who wants to be Rey Mysterio but can't quite get there because without the mask has added so much to Rey Mysterio because even like his ring gear, every year at Mania when he used to do the special ring gears, of the comic books, usually the superheroes and the comic book characters, he always did the mask around it too. I remember when he had like the Joker mask the year when I think Dark Knight came out.
He did Joker last year as well, I believe.
I'm not too sure. He might. No. I think it was just the once, like a decade ago or so.
A Joker-esque style recently in the last 2 years. Maybe it was a Saudi
He
show.
did.
I think it was at WrestleMania now. He had like a Joker.
He might have done again because I guess the Joker came out, didn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had it on. I remember seeing him with the Joker mask and like a Joker type of gear.
Yeah.
25 WrestleMania 25, and then when was it? WrestleMania 27, yeah, 21, I think. He had that Captain America gear. So
Yeah, I think the Captain America gear was my favorite one.
I think. Oh, and then WrestleMania 19, he had a Daredevil. He had a Daredevil gear.
Yeah, when he faced Matt Hardy.
Yeah, so he had pretty different gears from superheroes, and yeah, like how you guys mentioned, luchadores are pretty much superheroes or heroes themselves. Like Blue Demon and El Santo, they were superheroes pretty much. They made they made movies.
Yeah, I'd say Blue Demon is possibly my favorite luchador ever. I think.
I was gonna kind of El Santo is someone I wanted to bring up, as we're still kind of in the topic of luchadors being like portrayed as superheroes and being portrayed as heroes of the people, and the mask being so sacred. Again, you look how worshipped even to this day, like El Santo was for his how popular he was. He was making movies. I just gotta point out, even in the movies, he still wore his mask.
Yeah.
Just shows how dedicated he was, to how sacred it was to him, and how much it meant to him. How in comic books, he was portrayed as like a superhero, the hero of the people.
Yeah, because there is a line of comic books full of luchadors, like mainly mainstream ones, but I actually own the Lucha Brothers comic book. I can't for
Really?
the life of me remember who printed those or who wrote those, but I thought it was a very nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
I think
But
the thing is, I think masks are obviously something which is, I think it's throughout history, really, you could argue that it's been a part of a costume setup. So when you think back to even think back to the days of masquerade masks, it was part of a costume party. You think of obviously masks worn by people way back when, even like in Egyptian times, like having like all the like the headgear and that kind of stuff. Like there's always been something about masks that people are thing. And then so when you come to superheroes and you think of what they do incredible feats. I think it is almost like it kind of is almost an overlap, isn't it? It's like, the Lucha Libre style of wearing the mask and having the respect for the mask. They know it's part of their identity. The same way that Batman and other superheroes know that mask, their cape, their suit, that's all part of their identity, and that's why it's so important. And people can relate to it because whether you like wrestling or don't like wrestling, you can appreciate that. Oh, Rey Mysterio has a mask, so therefore the mask matters.
Mm-hmm.
I do have another interesting question when we've finished this topic that I've just thought of regarding masks.
Okay, for sure.
So if
And
just quickly finish what you're saying.
Sorry, real quick. The one thing I do also want to kind of a good point is I remember my senior year, I took advanced English and we had a study on comic books, and we discussed like what is the point of the secret identity, or what's the point of a mask. And trust me, this will all tie back to Lucha Libre. And my teacher made a good point of, the whole point of the secret identity and the mask is so you don't. There's slight. What's wrong? How do I word it? You basically, it's easier for yourself to identify with this person because you don't see a face. You can easily identify with their values. The person he brought up was Spider-Man. You look at Spider-Man, you don't know who's underneath, but you do know his values.
Yeah.
Just like you see that he's a good person. He's of the people, for the people. And hero. Same thing. I kind of see luchadors in the same light. You may not know what they look like underneath, the mask, but you can still identify them with their values. Whether they're a heel or they're a face or whatever.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. I think as well that's why it's almost like, because obviously it's such a character as well, and I think kids in particular, they resonate with those characters and those values. And so if you have obviously someone who obviously is wearing a mask, like, and they're able to connect more with the younger audience, like it works very well for the business, because the business has always been, no matter what style it is, to be fair, it's always about getting those fans interested and hooked when they're young, and then when they get to obviously our ages and above, they're still interested because of that initial hook. And fair enough, styles and that you like will change, but for a lot of young fans, those initial connections and interactions with the masked wrestlers, definitely obviously in areas where Lucha Libre is very popular, like they still are prevalent and remain prevalent to this day. And moments, even for myself, I'm not a massive Lucha Libre fan, but stuff like seeing early Rey Mysterio matches, really was what kept me interested in wrestling when I was a kid, because it was so fast paced. It was so different than seeing some of the other stuff. But obviously, it's only because like I'm a bit older and like I'm used to like the slower way of doing things. Whereas now, obviously, like wrestling's gone obviously insane. But I think in terms of lucha libre, something I'm a big kind of fan of is that they keep the good guy bad guy dynamic usually very strict, which isn't always the case in British and in American wrestling on some occasions. Whereas in Mexico, it's very much you're the good guy, you're the bad guy. And they usually stick to that format, which is easier for kids, for younger fans, I think, to kind of digest, which helps make it more popular, I'd argue, because if you get a kid interested in something, what they're going to do? They're going to bring their family, because if you're 5 years old, you can't show up at a show by yourself. Probably not legally anyway.
Yeah. I got first introduced to Lucha Libre probably like in the local shows they have here. Just like I would say I was like 8 or 9. But I first when I started watching wrestling, I was at WWE. That's where I started off. That's where most people start off. But since like I mentioned, this area where I live in, it's Lucha Libre is very popular. So let's say like they have like a music festival or whatever, there'll be like random Lucha Libre like at the other side or whatever. But uh, as well, when I was growing up into Lucha Libre, I looked up more like, all right, like I already knew a sense who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. It depends on their character and what they do in the ring, and like that already hook you up with who's who and who's what, and it's pretty true. And once you grow in a bigger age, you still hook up to it, and you're like you appreciate it more once
Yeah.
you grow up, because you're like, wow, like this is better. But like as a kid, you just appreciate the wrestler, but in general, you appreciate the lucha libre once you grow up.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, so if I just quickly jump in with my question about masks and lucha libre, I think this is an interesting one because I don't know as much about lucha libre as obviously you guys would, because it's pretty much every corner for you. But for you to be a luchador, do you need a mask or do you just need an identity?
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I would say not. I would say not really, because like I think Taya Valkyrie, she said it the best. Like she calls herself a luchadora, but she doesn't have a mask. But she still, like you mentioned, Josh, she still has an identity. She still very much practices that style. Now, I don't want to name drop because I know he wouldn't want it, but I have a friend. He doesn't look like a traditional luchador, but he practices that style, and he's all about it. And he doesn't have a if I say what he wears, it's gonna give him away. But he doesn't look. I guess I'll leave it at that. He doesn't look like a luchador, but he still identifies as one because he still practices that style and he still has that identity. Like I said, like you mentioned, Josh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't.
so my understanding is that it's based on following the culture and keeping up with what it is rather than looking the part, shall we say.
I guess
Yeah,
it depends on who you're trained by too, and where you're training. Because if you're training at a lucha school, I'll argue,
yeah,
and you're working with other luchador wrestlers, whether they are masked or not masked, you're going to end up becoming a lucha worker, whether you like it or not. And it's only
yeah,
when I guess you would go to schools maybe in America or Japan or Britain or wherever it may be, where they then go, right, we're now going to teach you strong style. We're going to focus on your technical wrestling. We're going to focus on hardcore, whatever it might be. That you get obviously away from that. But like if you're wrestling people who are luchas doors, then you're going to be a luchador. Regardless of whether you're going to have a mask or not a mask. But I think the mask is such a part of the identity, which is why it gets obviously brought up like this, where we're saying like the mask. It's hard for some people, some fans to be like, oh, he doesn't wear a mask, so he's not a luchador. But I think very much it should work the other way around, where it's like if he's just training around other people, like he's going to be one, or she. So,
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to have a mask to be a luchador. Like, excuse me. There's some that wrestle without a mask, but there's some that use their mask and just keep wrestling. I don't. I think he just recently retired, but there's this local wrestler here. We have a name is Mysterio Boy. He lost his mask against Príncipe Celestial. But that Mysterio Boy is still wrestling. He still wrestles like if he's the same guy with a mask. Not but like how we mentioned, it might lose the value. But if you can find another way to make yourself better without the mask, then that's good. And as long as you practice the way of lucha and know the rules of lucha and all that stuff, you're still considered a luchador. You don't necessarily have to have a mask, but it's some of them. It's for some, it's really helpful to have it. It just depends on what character you have.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd
Right,
argue.
and that's something. I'm sorry, you can go on, Lucas.
So yeah, I'd argue as well that with luchadors, especially when it comes to WWE and some of the television promotions, that they focus, especially WWE, they focus so much on the acting and the kind of showmanship side of things. A mask obviously inhibits facial expressions and can sometimes make promos feel a bit odd to someone watching in who's not used to seeing masks. And so I think that's another reason I think WWE like getting rid of masks of people, because they feel that someone like Andrade, for instance, he's very good, obviously, facially wise. He's, without getting too homo here, like he's a good looking guy. Like people are going to resonate more, perhaps their audience might resonate more with him if he's unmasked, as opposed to if you put a mask on him. And I think as well the bar has been set so high with some of the luchadors that have come previously that people just won't buy them as anything else. Like if they're under a mask, like how many times did Kalisto get compared to Rey Mysterio the minute he debuted and started getting a bit of a push? Same thing with even Lucha House Party. They went, right, we're going to put you all together, because they did want at one point, I think, to have Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara team as a tag team, and that obviously didn't work. Obviously, Sin Cara kept injuring himself and other people, and then they've just gone, okay, right, now we just put all Lucha together. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And the one thing I kind of want to. Sorry. So
go ahead. No,
and
go
the
ahead.
one and Lucas, he brought up a really good point. It does. I feel like it also does matter who you're trained by, but it also brings a good point. Is what's kind of like we also mentioned in the part one, where when is too far for a death match? Well, at a certain point, what defines a luchador from a just say a cruiserweight or a junior heavyweight? Would you all say?
Good question, that. Like, I think it's down to where you trained. I think it's down to where you trained and the promotion you're working for, I think. And I think there's perhaps certain barriers that I guess if you was to play like a kind of a checklist and say that, let's say you're allowed maybe 5 rules to kind of break. So you go, right, I'm not gonna wear a mask. That's gonna be one rule. I'm not gonna do dives, let's say. Okay, that's maybe like points 2 and 3 going now. Do you know what I mean? You're down to like, okay, if that person's not going to do a lot of the stuff associated with that style, then that's where you're like, okay, this guy maybe is not a luchador anymore. Or if they're not presented as luchadors, that's another thing as well, I guess. And WWE, they're very Andrade. They don't present him as a luchador. They present him as his own thing. He's Andrade. He's got his own gimmick. He's got his own. He's he's facing Mexicans on the most part, it seemed, for last year, but he's able to obviously wrestle kind of a WWE kind of style. That's the way I see it. I don't know about Josh.
It's a tricky one for me because, like I mentioned, I don't really know a load about Lucha Libre, but I do think that, like Chase and Julio have mentioned already, that it is very much the culture. Like, for me, what makes the difference between a junior heavyweight / cruiserweight and a luchador is definitely, I think, the training and the culture that you're behind. I don't think it's necessarily the promotion you're working for, unless it's WWE, in which case they don't give a shit. But I think it definitely is based on the culture that you're following and how you're perceiving yourself as opposed to how the fans are perceiving you. Like, I know, especially in England, like, we don't really have luchadors. We don't really have lucha libre in England. Like, we've got the London School of Lucha Libre. Sorry, I've accidentally just plugged someone, but but they train the lucha style. But I don't think that you could really consider any of them luchadors. I don't know if Lucas, if you'd consider any of the guys from London School of Lucha
Well, no,
as real luchadors.
even they changed the way they do shows in the last, well, obviously pre Global Bastard, to nick the what culture phrase. They, I really like that. I don't know why. I just do. I think as well, it's another word. Sorry to distract from the broadcast a little bit. It's another word that us British say better than you Americans. I think bastard. It's something very British about it. But anyway, I think it is. We say it really
I agree.
Is that a shoot, brother?
But you say things good too. So there's just tit for tat at this point. But I think ultimately that this is a problem. When I go off track, I now lose what I was going to say in the first place. What was I saying before that?
The Lucha
London School of Lucha Libre.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's called Lucha. They had kind of changed their ways because I think the problem they were having in terms of the UK scene is that there's only really room for one masked act per show. A lot, just based on how we book shows, as promoters, like a masked wrestler would be seen as a gimmick, and if most shows had a masked guy on them, they would instantly think, okay, I want Rey Mysterio. Obviously on a budget, but I want Rey Mysterio. So I want top rope, I want dives, I want springboards, I want that style of wrestling if I book someone under a mask. And the problem they were getting, I believe, is that they had everyone under masks, but a promoter would only have room for one at a time. So if you wanted to go, I don't know if you guys, I guess American people probably do this quite a lot with their shows, like sharing talent. Like if a carload of Lucha students are showed up at a show, potentially only one of them could end up getting booked because, like the UK scene, there's not much scope for like more than one masked act per show on most shows because it's not a popular style. It's seen more as a gimmick. Whereas obviously, like we said, like in places in most parts of America where there's a heavy Mexican influence, and definitely in Mexico, it's seen as like part of the culture, but it's not part of our culture. Hence why it's not seen as a big deal as much. Sadly, I guess for you guys, like sadly. But for us, we obviously have our own style that we like to promote. So, it's very different.
Yeah, it depends on uh, where one lives, is how everything is at. Like, let's say, like Japan, that's their area. But let's say if it's somebody, they're trained one way, but if someone's trained here, like the way that they're trained in Japan, it's not gonna look the same. I think like how you say, how you mentioned it, but I agree with what you mentioned. It just depends on where you live and the region, it's how it's gonna look. Pure.
Right now, and just to kind of also back up, is my mic on? Yes, it is.
Yeah,
To
you
kind of
are.
also back up, so to back up what Julio said, I do agree. I also agree that it also depends on where you, basically like where your home of operation is. Like for example, like this may be kind of like controversial, but I wouldn't consider someone like Will Ospreay a luchador. Grant, like
No,
even
it's
though
not.
he did train at like I mentioned the London School of Lucha Libre, I believe that's where he trained at.
Yeah, that was one of the places he
Okay.
trained. That he visits there quite frequently, I believe, when he's in the UK.
Yeah, he does.
Obviously, he's living in Japan now.
Well, he was.
Right. Now, of course, we all know, like he's someone I wouldn't necessarily consider a luchador. He mainly, wrestles for New Japan Pro Wrestling, but even though he has that background, I still wouldn't consider him like a luchador at all.
No, I think he's a very unique talent in its own. Like, I consider him more of a cruiserweight style with that lucha libre influence put into it. But obviously, like you said, I wouldn't consider him a luchador. But I wouldn't go as far as to just say he's a cruiserweight, because the moment you put that label cruiserweight on someone, it's like it kind of degrades their kind of star power a little bit. But I think that's mainly the impact of WWE that's done that, because their cruiserweight division has never really been a main event division. It's always been mid-carders or even kickoff show.
At
Well,
now
best.
look,
it extends more than WWE. End of the
Yeah.
day, Tyson Fury is the highest paid boxer in the world for a reason. He's 6'8", and like it looks like a boxer. You know, people like Amir Khan and other like cruiserweight and welterweight and all the other weights that they have for boxing, like they're not a draw. Yeah, they're not a draw for tickets. And so even though like cruiserweights in WWE have been mistreated, and in WCW, don't get me wrong, have been mistreated, there's a reason behind it. It's just they don't draw money or as much money historically as obviously some of the bigger acts.
yeah,
And
in those
similarly
areas.
with Lucha Libre, outside of Mexico, it hasn't really proven or we could argue it hasn't been allowed to prove that it can be a main event attraction. I mean, outside of Rey Mysterio and the Lucha Bros, who you could argue the Lucha Bros as well have a tag team gimmick behind them. So even though they are luchas, they have the tag team thing going for them too, which is like a kind of double-edged kind of thing. There's no kind of go-to, okay, this lucha guy is the main event of WrestleMania. And even Rey Mysterio, I don't think he closed WrestleMania. I think he was on like halfway down the card and was a triple threat match.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like,
I don't even know that Rey Mysterio has main evented the WrestleMania yet. In all his years in the company, I don't know if he has.
he hasn't. No, he hasn't.
No.
I mean, he's had championship matches on pay per view. For the World Championship, he's had opportunities of that. But
The more I think of it, actually, the less I consider Lucha Libre to be cruiserweight, because it's not. You don't. From what I've seen, Lucha Libre isn't just lightweight competitors. You can have larger athletes in Lucha Libre. So I wouldn't even consider it cruiserweight anymore. It's because it's not all about the flips and shit, if that makes sense. It is very much the culture behind it.
And that's also really that is a good point, Josh, because there's two. As soon as you mentioned that, there were two people that come to mind, and that's not I don't know if y'all saw it, but before he made his WWE debut, when Cain Velasquez, when he wrestled for AAA, it was in that same match with Cody and Psycho Clown.
Yeah, I watched
Cross.
that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did he not have a mask for that match?
He did.
Yeah.
Just
And
for the entrance.
No, he had it for the full match.
You sure?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Dude, I'll cut my ponytail off if I'm wrong.
Hold on, let me
Anyway,
get that up. But carry on.
So anyway, as I wager my ponytail. Anyway, so I was my train of thought. So he's very much built not like unlike a traditional cruiserweight. When I think cruiserweights, I'm thinking of like Juventud Guerrera. I'm thinking of Spike Dudley. Like these smaller frame guys. Meanwhile, Cain Velasquez, he's very much like a heavyweight. Like no matter how you put it, how you want to define it.
Considering he's multiple heavyweight champion in UFC, I think safe to say he's definitely not cruiserweight.
Exactly. But he's still able to pull off. He was still able to pull off like some of those those lucha moves. And of course another guy that y'all may not know that has a little special place in my heart. I saw him at a Ring of Honor show. His name was he was in a triple threat match. No, I'm sorry, not triple threat. A 6-man tag team against SCU. His name was Stuka Jr. if I'm not mistaken. He's a big boy. If y'all aren't familiar with him, definitely look him up. He definitely shouldn't move the way he moves, but he's a very, very not built like a cruiserweight at all.
Well, you're saying that you look at people like Samoa Joe and Bronson Reed, they're pulling off like Lope Suicidas and things like that. Like they're pulling off these kind of lucha moves that you look at them and go, nah, they can't run for shit. And then they'll sprint and jump over the ropes. You're like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you bring that up, Josh, it's kind of like like now kind of like taking back what I said. So like maybe like you guys are both right, and maybe it's not so much like oh, is he a luchador, is he a cruiserweight? Now it's like, well, shit. The more now I'm thinking about it, it's like, yeah, you're right. It's not so much being a luchador is not so much being part of a cruiserweight. Now it's like it's a whole separate identity.
Have we just inadvertently taught you something about Lucha Libre?
I think y'all just did. Holy shit.
We've just had a group epiphany, which really sounds like an innuendo, so I'm going to stop talking.
I think as well, like, obviously, is Lucha Libre for cruiserweights or not? Is a kind of it then has to open up the question of, is cruiserweight size based or style based as well? And I think it's a bit of both is the answer, because I guess you could argue, like, when Keith Lee, someone who's heavily featured now on WWE, like, he's a big guy, but he's able to do top rope stuff. He's able to dive. He's able to do a lot of stuff.
Keith Lee is a scary athlete.
Yeah,
like he will hit you like a freight train.
Well, even when Bray Wyatt first debuted, even as Husky Harris, he was doing stuff which are like, oh, this guy who's like almost 290 pounds, like, he shouldn't be doing this stuff, but somehow he is. So I think it just depends how you are, but I think nowadays people are able to kind of appreciate that there's different types of builds and guys that happen. I think they, especially because I think they've had to do it, because obviously, just the way the business has gone, it has the gaps narrowed down. Whereas before the main event was like, if you're 6'6" jack and the bodybuilder guys, and then the opening of the show was the cruiserweights who were like 5 foot nothing and blah blah and like 120, 130 pounds, whatever. Now the gap's narrowed because you've got people like Seth Rollins, for instance, who would and AJ Styles, I guess, who would probably qualify for the original WWE cruiserweight limit of 220, because they're about 200 pounds, 210 pounds.
I think they've changed it to 205 now.
I'm sorry?
I think they've changed it to 205 now.
Yeah, but the original limit was 220, because that was the original limit for WCW's cruiserweight belt, and they kept that. And there was a funny story you mentioned about Rey Mysterio when he faced Matt Hardy, and Matt Hardy was doing weight loss to get from 230 to 220 to make the cruiserweight cut, and obviously he did. But I think, now the gap's been narrowed down. Like, you don't feel as weird seeing like Seth Rollins, for instance, take on an actual heavyweight like a Brock Lesnar. It doesn't feel weird it being marketed like that. Whereas in the 90s, it would have felt very odd and very weird for, say, Billy Kidman to be facing like a Randy Savage or like a Booker T. That would just feel very weird. But now it feels like, okay, no, these guys actually stand a chance. But in terms of like Lucha Libre, like, I think it's something which, it would take like quite a big promotion, I think, opening up in like another territory for it to kind of extend its major mainstream reach. Yes, it does exist over here, but its major mainstream reach, I think it would need like another promotion to kind of really, really kind of take off. Because I don't even think like a lot of Mexican promotions do tours over in the UK as well. So it's like,
there's not a Mexican promotion, but there is a Lucha Libre promotion that are solely Lucha Libre, because they had Blue Demon on their show in London.
Yeah.
But I think they're only like once a year, which sucks because I was meant to go to it.
So going back to big man doing lucha stuff, I would say the War Raiders. I call them the War Raiders. I don't know. I hate saying the other name. What is it? The Viking Experience?
The Viking Warriors at the moment, or the Viking Raiders at the moment.
Yeah, well,
but they were meant to be the Viking Experience, but like 2 weeks in, and WWE like, oh shit, everyone hates the name, change it.
Yeah, so them Well, I'll call them the War Raiders, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. The War Raiders, Hanson and Rowe, like they move like cruiserweights. I was watching the other day some Ring of Honor footage, and I was like, man, like I don't know how these guys do it. Also, as well, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tyrus. Yeah, Taurus. Yeah,
Mm.
Taurus. He's from AAA. He has like a mask of a bull. He as well. He's pretty big
Oh
man.
yes, I
Yeah,
follow him on Instagram.
yeah. So he's a pretty big guy. You've seen him, right? So he,
He's
what
got
was
like
it?
a Minotaur gimmick type situation, hasn't he?
Yeah, something like that. So when was it? Back in October, he was wrestling Karrion Cross. Well, when he was Killer Cross, he was wrestling there, and he was just jumping on the ropes like he was Ray Phoenix, literally. And I was like, how can a man the size of that size does moves like Ray Phoenix does? And I was like, wow, like I was like, man, it's pretty
Right.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. Even Undertaker will do a tope con hilo every now and then during his matches.
Uh-huh.
I think I got
So
that right. Tope con hilo, where you do a somersault over the ropes.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
So
See, I'm
yeah,
cultured.
so it doesn't matter the size as long as you follow tradition of wrestling, of lucha libre, my bad, of lucha libre, and it's always that stereotype that it's always a cruiserweight, but not really.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with
Hmm.
that. I think as well that Lucha Libre as a style, um, we've spoken a lot about how it's booked and like masks and stuff. But I think as a style, as it's very fast paced, as it's very colourful and larger than life, it makes very good for TV because
Hmm.
obviously it's very already kind of built in like for a TV audience in mind, because it films and looks very good. Um, so obviously I touched upon that. I'm not the biggest fan of Lucha Libre, and my biggest kind of issue with it, which again, look, we're all we're getting to know each other and like we're discussing stuff, so it's not said to offend anyone. My biggest issue with it is that I don't believe that a lot of the offense looks realistic or looks like it hurts, and it's a similar argument I have with a lot of the kind of Young Bucks kind of stuff, where I believe the offense, in my opinion, looks like it's rehearsed, overly rehearsed, and so
Hmm.
it takes me out of the action a bit when I watch it. I keep thinking it just looks too much, almost like a dance sequence. And again, this is said not to offend anyone. It said like my opinion, obviously, of watching the stuff every now and like throughout the years, and just how I feel. Because even stuff that I think Rey Mysterio does at times, I'm like, how does that hurting anyone? It doesn't resonate as much with me, and perhaps it's because I'm an older fan. But then I'm older fan, or I'm a fan of like when strikes are an area where I feel that Lucha lets themselves down sometimes. I feel that the strikes don't look like they're meant to hurt. They're meant as just like a segue into the next spot, more
Hmm.
so than, oh, I'm going to strike you to hurt you. It's like, no, I'm going to strike you just to get you to the ropes so that I can obviously do an impressive stuff. And I can't, like, similar to like how I feel about the Young Bucks, like, I can't fault what Lucha Libres do because I couldn't do it. I don't think anyone else in this podcast could do half the stuff. But I feel a bit like that's where they lose a lot of people and where they can't be seen as main talent because people can't take it seriously. But even though it's more boring, you could take like, perhaps, well, you can name half the WWE main event scene here. You could take them as like, okay, yeah, I can see why they're in the main event because they look the part and their offense looks believable.
Yeah, I think it's very much based on the audience, the target audience. So if you were to take the style of Lucha Libre to America as a full-time thing, I don't think you'd get as many fans going to them as you would say a Ring of Honor show. Like if they were on the same level financially and scale-wise, I think that's the only downfall of Lucha Libre is the fact that it is very showmanship style. Well, no, maybe not even showmanship, but it is very much that larger than life situation where some of the offense can look unrealistic in the sense of it looks a lot like there's a lot of rolls in it instead of slams. But I think that's more a case of that's the way that traditional wrestling fans view it, as opposed to people that are just all around love every single style type thing.
Mm. Yeah, I get that.
Being quiet now because we offended them.
No.
I was thinking something. Yeah, I gotta agree with Lucas. It seems like lucha libre is more choreographed. They gotta keep practicing and practicing. Of course, one, to do it safely, and two, for it to come out. That comes with any move that they're trying to do, flips and stuff. It is like a dance, and I agree. And but still, I still how do you say it? Still evaluate it. I still see it's a great culture, but I agree with what you said. It's just all choreographed.
Mhm.
I think
I
the main thing I take from Lucha Libre is it's not necessarily the hard hitting action. The thing that I appreciate the most about the Lucha Libre style is the culture behind it. Like me with wrestling is I'm not always there necessarily for, you know, the fighting. I'm always there for the story behind it or the culture behind it. It depends on what show I'm watching, or depend on how I'm looking at it. It's how it's
Yeah,
perceived.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like on lucha, like I respect how the culture is in lucha libre because the way they respect it, the way they see it, and now I'm always gonna be a lucha fan because I mean, even though it's gonna look choreographed and whatever, and like a dance, I mean, I still like it. I'm still gonna be impressed on what they do, and but it's always good to do it once, like many times, to practice it, of course, for safety and for the wrestlers to hook up with the audience.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think they're very crowd focused, which I guess again that helps the popularity factor, as well.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna jump in a little bit now. I was thinking about it. I agree, but I also disagree. Um, I'll say agree because yeah, it is choreographed. You know, and and I'll see some matches where you see guys with like zero offense in, and they're just doing like all sorts of like flips all over the place, flipping all over each other. And even I'm as a fan of Lucha, I'm like, okay, that's not really it, Chief. But I also kind of see it in the same way as I view martial arts. We value a lot of martial arts. Like for example, like I was watching Karate Kid last night. When they were
Oh,
doing, like the
I,
kata, like the Earth, Wind, Fire, kata. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Theatrical. But in practice, it's still about fighting. You know,
yeah.
or like again, like you see in, I don't know if y'all have seen on the spin-off show Cobra Kai. There's a scene where Karate Kid Daniel LaRusso is teaching his two students, his daughter and another kid, how to balance, how to have each other's back, how to do this, and we're kind of like brushing it off as, oh, like this isn't fighting, this isn't dance, like this is just dancing, whatever. But I do believe, like he said, there was like a deeper meaning, kind of like how I see Lucha Libre. There is a
Yeah, I
deeper
get that.
meaning to all like the flips, all the dives, all like the choreographed stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I get that. And, to put this on another foot then, like, would we as fans buy more, say, the Young Bucks style of stuff if we knew that there was a kind of practice behind it? There was a reason why they did 1,000 spots in a minute, because they had a belief, they had like a book, or they had like a figure in wherever they're from in the States who said to them, you must be the fastest and most unrealistic wrestlers in the world. That is the goal. Like, I think the culture dictates the respect the wrestlers get, and it
Mm-hmm.
sometimes outweighs the actual performance that you get in the ring. Is how I feel. Sadly, I don't
Right.
want to offend any fan
And
base, but that's how I feel.
no, and you're right too. Like the fan base does, and like the critics do. How you mentioned, a person that kind of came to mind was, and I apologize for kind of thinking this up, was someone like Jim Cornette, who just absolutely hates everything, like all like the flippy choreographed stuff, But and at a certain point, it's like, well, like I mentioned, it's like it does get a little bit too unrealistic, and I do agree. But again, it's kind of take away with it as much as you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's no
that's
right.
fair.
There's no right or wrong opinion on liking lucha libre. It's like
Oh
it's
no,
like
no,
music.
not at all. Yeah, look, it's with wrestling in general though. You could argue. I think that's the problem we have
Mhm.
as a fan base, where instantly because someone doesn't like the same wrestling you do, that person instantly seen as a bad person or seen someone to obviously troll online or whatever. But it's like the beauty about wrestling is that it's always been about variety, and the same way you can appreciate you know a 5 minute Goldberg Lesnar match, you can also appreciate the hour, bloody bloodbaths they do in Japan, or the Lucha Libre really kind of flippy dippy and lots of kind of rehearsed kind of stuff, and the same with the Young Bucks and stuff, and tag teams and rumbles. It's so added to wrestling that's not just like suplexes and technical wrestling at the day.
There's different flavors for everyone.
Indeed.
I'll tell you one thing I do love about the lucha style of wrestling is I've always been a massive tag team fanatic. Like, for someone that hates other people most of the time, I do love tag team wrestling, and I think the thing I like about tag team wrestling in Lucha Libre is they definitely have their own style of tag team wrestling. Like, you don't have tags in tag team wrestling in Lucha Libre, if I'm correct. Like, lucha rules are different. Like, the moment your partner goes out of the ring, you can get in the ring.
Yeah, it keeps it all fast moving, I think. But
Yeah, which I like. I like that difference. Yeah,
adopted that, but without
except with what's their names, FTR.
Yeah, FTR are the only ones that actually make a tag in the entirety of the AEW promotion.
But AEW love their tag team wrestling, and definitely that. I think they brought in that lucha style of tag wrestling.
Well, I think though, not just. I think thing is, WWE have always been about building single styles, and obviously Vince McMahon he associates tag team wrestling with the days of the territories, and so he will always avoid promoting tag team wrestling. Hence why the tag belts are as they are. But obviously, AEW, Japan, and Mexico, they're very much about kind of definitely the first two are definitely about tag team stuff. But how they build up their big events is usually with tag team matches, and then you build up to a big event where you see singles action. Whereas WWE are usually the other way around, where they have tag team matches usually on television to build up to your big singles matches on your pay per view, because they're always about the single individual style rather than tag teams and stables and all that kind of stuff. I think Lucha Libre, like the tag rule works really well for them because it keeps the action flowing constantly, and in the day you can get. Whereas WWE would want to have like a 15-20 minute tag match, a Lucha show can have like a 5-10 minute one and get all the stuff in that it needs to because they haven't got to worry about the story. Whereas WWE got the story to worry about and cameras and everything else, all the additional stuff to worry about. Whereas in Lucha, it's just like, no, let's just do what we do and impress with our style more so than the story.
Now, something that I hate, I really, really hate about Lucha Libre. I don't know if you guys ever seen matches like this, but wherever there's the matches are going good, but then the referee just has to step in and like attack. Well, it's probably part of the show, but attack like the face and like
Yeah.
tries. You know what I mean? Like I hate that. Like I can't stand a match like that. There's some shows here from where I live. Most of the matches are like that. There isn't really like a clean lucha match. There's always gonna be matches like that. There's even one time during a match, the ref that's there, he's pretty crazy. So he was with the heels, he's all building heat and whatever, and like everybody was outside the ring. out of nowhere they're just telling him to jump to do a dive, and so the guy just goes and does the dive and hits himself in the head with one of the bleachers there. But
Jesus.
that's something that cringes me out. That refs just mess up a good match, you know. But it's probably just not the way that the show has to go.
Yeah, I guess it showed the same kind of thing, though, I guess. And I guess that some of those spots, they seemed very popular with the crowd at the time, but potentially not with like people obviously watch it back or people who are newer to it who aren't familiar with it as much.
So now I think we should just jump ship. We've been talking a lot of lucha. I think we should
I
just
know.
just ship to the American style.
Yep, the American style.
Can we really say that America has its own style?
Not
Because I
really.
think American wrestling is a blend of everything, but with more theatrics behind it. Is my outlook on it. Like, if you look at WWE, without shitting on every other wrestling promotion in America, WWE is the perfect example of American wrestling. Larger than life characters, massive, muscly bodybuilder type characters, and lots of theatrics and storylines. American wrestling is all about the storytelling with the wrestling.
Mm-hmm. And it changed drastically during time. Like mostly, I would say mostly around the 70s and the 80s, probably even before. It was just like just wrestling. There wasn't much of a story. Probably there was, but there wasn't much. It was just more into like wrestling, you know. But then more later on, more to the 90s, late 80s, Attitude Era. That's when probably the story just started showing more. It was showing more of a react. I can't say it. More of a story, more of showing it as a theatrical thing.
I think the thing is, wrestling was never presented correctly until the Americans got their hands on it, as in presented for a mainstream audience. And we touched upon it, I believe, when we did the British stuff in the part one and early on when we touched upon it earlier. But I feel that Vince McMahon came along, Vince McMahon Senior, Junior here, sorry. He came along and assessed the fact that wrestling was popular. Yes, Bruno Sammartino in the 60s and 70s sold and made a lot of money doing wrestling, but there wasn't this kind of familiarity further down the card, and there wasn't this. It was still very kept to its world. So Bruno Sammartino was a wrestler, and you saw him on a wrestling show. You didn't see him outside of that. And so what Vince McMahon saw was that if you can present it better, or present it so it's more so it can be seen as being better at least, then fans will flock from elsewhere. And so you flash forward to Hulkamania, which is going to be controversial, and people I think who might comment about this, but there has never been and there never will be another time where wrestling was as popular as it was during the initial Hulkamania era of wrestling. This is when, don't get me wrong, the Attitude Era, popular as fuck. You had even like the stuff in the Ruthless Aggression era, and even around the time when, they did the Rock and Cena, that angle being very hot, and getting a lot of getting their all-time pay-per-view record, whatever it is. But wrestling was so popular in the 80s, like Hulk Hogan and people like that were your mainstream stars. They would, like I said, we touched upon El Santos doing movies. Hogan did movies. Hogan did TV. Hogan did MTV. Hogan did breakfast shows. He had a serial. He had a cartoon. He was a megastar in every sense of the word. But in terms of American style, yes, you're right. They've nicked from everyone else. But the American style, how I see it, is the presentation and production. It's those two elements that separated them from other countries and other styles. I think, end of the day, the British stuff, despite being very popular, when you're watching World of Sport back nowadays, it's really hard to watch it back because it's so bad, like quality wise, in terms of how just of how it was filmed, how it looks. Whereas WWE came along with fancy productions, with you know camera cuts, and ring barriers. They started getting advertising, and they started getting everything else added to it. It looked like this is a TV show. This is a show I want to be part of. And then the wrestlers too, like Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Ted DiBiase, they were superstars. They weren't just, sadly, for British wrestling, it was like middle-aged kind of men in swimming costumes to an extent, for some of them. Or in Japan, it was like, well, they're too small. Like we can't buy that as like these are mainstream stars. And it would come for Japan, don't get me wrong. And same thing with Lucha Libre, it would come in their respective nations. But I feel very much presentation, advertising, production is the American style, more so than what goes on in between the ropes.
Yeah, I think in America they're definitely more of a corporate entertainment, shall we say. They very much try to turn it into a TV production as opposed to a sport, shall we say. That they emphasize, they embody sports entertainment. Like there's no other way of putting WWE and American wrestling. It is sports entertainment. The key word being entertainment there. Whereas England, we try to, like in the UK, we try to make it more hard hitting and more about the technical side of it than we do the storytelling. Mainly because a lot of British companies, obviously DKW being one, don't have that weekly show to have the story running on. So they have it so that the story carries on, but it makes sense as just a standalone show. Yeah. Whereas WWE, if you miss like a month, you're like, what the fuck's happening? What have I missed? Like, you can't watch WWE just for the wrestling. Well, you can, but that's not their intention. And again, if we go back to Lucha Libre, it's not necessarily the storytelling that's there, but the culture behind it. They're a culture-based sport. Then you've got Japan, which are all about the making it real. Like, oh my god, he actually punched that guy in the face. Like, this isn't just a sports entertainment. This is real. Like, they don't have kayfabe in Japan. Lucha Libre doesn't have kayfabe. England, I'd say, does have kayfabe. Lucas, would you agree with that? Like, British wrestling does have kayfabe.
I think you mean the other way round.
What do you mean?
If you break kayfabe, then like that would be seen as you don't have it. If that makes sense. So we don't. Yeah, it's the other way around. So like, we don't have kayfabe over here.
What, as like, in the sense of like we don't have characters that are then separate from you as a person?
Well, no. I mean, I see kayfabe as like people over here know it's fake.
Yeah.
For the most part, and it gets presented as entertainment. If you have kayfabe, it gets presented as real, is what I'd say. So it's presented as real in Japan.
Yeah, but that I wouldn't say in Japan, like Japan and Lucha Libre would say they have kayfabe. They're not presenting it as real. They believe it is real.
No, but the presentation of it is that it is real. They do press conferences.
Yeah. I don't think they have the concept of it though in Japan and Lucha Libre. Like, I think they're just trying to be like, well, yeah, like this is a sport. Like these aren't characters; these are people.
They are in kayfabe, yeah. They're in kayfabe mode. Whereas over here, that it's not, because wrestlers have Facebook and Twitter where they are just themselves. You know, on the most part, apart from a few exceptions of people like Cara Noir and like guys.
I definitely think
big time gimmick.
I definitely think WWE have kayfabe, but it's broken. Like they're trying to have kayfabe.
Well, they are, but social media makes it impossible because I mean, Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville went out for like lunch the other day after, you know what I mean, like, after beating the crap out of each other at SummerSlam.
But they definitely try their hardest to on the show separate reality from fiction. But my point is
they have trailers for Total Divas during Raw.
Yeah,
So it's like here's the girls hating each other and fighting,
and then here's them loving each other.
Here's them all fucking at bloody Cape Verde, sharing a fucking pina colada. So yeah,
Right. So if we ignore the whole rant about kayfabe, then like WWE is very much about the theatrics, and they're all about having the characters, whereas Lucha Libre in Japan are very much set in stone. This is what it is.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I think that's really what defines American wrestling is the fact that they 100% try to have the stories different to the individuals. Like they do play characters on screen. Like it's not them. It is literally characters on a screen.
Yeah, I get that.
Mm-hmm. And I do kind of want to backtrack to what y'all said about, how like if you don't watch WWE for like a month, you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And I do feel like it's harder to get into wrestling if your first exposure is WWE for the first time. For example, I had my ex-girlfriend. I tried to get her into wrestling, as you do, and it was around the time of WrestleMania 34, and she was just like, "Who's this? Why are they doing this?" And I was trying to like, the main thing was when Bray Wyatt came in for the Andre the Giant Battle Royale, and she was like, "Who's that?" And like, "Why is he helping him?" And I'm like, "Okay, sit down. I gotta explain this to you." And I had to go like I had to explain like the final deletion. I had to explain who Matt Hardy was, why he does this, who's Bray Wyatt, why he's doing that, why it's such a big deal, why it's just over. I feel like at certain points like needlessly over complicating things.
So I think we've
you know what I
just
mean?
established something that if you're just getting into wrestling, don't start with WWE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start somewhere else.
It's gonna be really hard.
I think it depends why you get into wrestling. Like what draws you to wrestling in the first place. Like I think if you're drawn to it from the sporting side of things and want the sports presentation of it, then you need to get into it via like New Japan. But if you're into being entertained, like WWE is the entertaining show. Entertainment show. Like it is, even though some of the stuff, is pony and, a bit dog shit at times, like it is still an entertainment show. And weirdly, you mentioned this, but people that I've got into wrestling get into wrestling, but not because of wrestling, but because of stupid things that just go, well, in the old days it got popular, but now it's getting viral. Like, for instance, people who are not into wrestling or don't know about wrestling will always mention moments or wrestlers that are more comedic or entertaining. So, for instance, like I've got friends who don't know wrestling but know who Val Venus is because he was the guy who did the whole choppy chop Mr. PP. Like that, you know what I mean? That was, but and he's not exactly the most, he's not bad wrestling, don't get me wrong, but in terms of wrestling, like he's not within, I'd say, like the top 10, 20, 30, 50, maybe even 100 people that would come into, if someone said to me, list wrestlers, like, I would have a lot of people to say before I mention Val Venus. But non-wrestling fans, they remember that. And same thing this year, like a lot of people watched Boneyard Match who don't watch wrestling. They watched, the Swamp Fight who don't watch wrestling because it's entertaining. There's something to it. But I do agree that it's very hard to get people into like a weekly product like Monday Night Raw and into all the intricacies of, Seth Rollins is now doing this gimmick and it's because of this. But it's very easy for them to go, well, this guy is undead and this guy wants to bury him and they're having a match in the graveyard. It's like, oh, okay, I can, but I can understand that story, but it's harder to be like, oh well, Seth Rollins does the curb stomp because of this. He's called the Architect because of this reason. Or he's had this gimmick. Oh, Murphy's with him this week, and 2 weeks ago he had Austin Theory with him, who disappeared. It's very hard to get that level of conversation into it. But I'd almost guarantee, if next time you do get a girlfriend, You know, just be like, right, here's the fucking swamp fight. These two guys are fighting in a swamp. These two guys are fighting in a swamp. You'd probably
Yeah.
Um, going back to what Chase said, and Josh, that once you don't watch WWE for a while, at least for like a month before, like you don't know what's going on. Same thing happened to me. I think I stopped watching right after 2011. General wrestling, I stopped watching around 2011. Around like I don't remember when was the first time I saw Young Bucks, but the first time I saw the Young Bucks, I was like, oh shit, like this looks cool, this looks badass, this looks like holy shit, like who are these people? But then again, when I was like, you know what, I'll see what's up in WWE. There was Seth Rollins, there was Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose. Oh, I already knew that. My bad. There was like NXT, who was like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. I was like, who the heck are these guys? Like you just lose like sight of track of everything.
To be
But
fair, the first time I saw the Young Bucks was when they were Generation Me in TNA.
wow, those are long days ago, aren't they?
yeah,
That's a name I haven't heard in forever.
I think the first time I saw the Young Bucks was back when Alberto Rio was at Ring of Honor once. I don't remember.
No, because
But
the first time I saw Young Bucks was as Generation Me, and it was in TNA because they were having a rivalry against the Motor City Machine Guns during Motor City Machine Guns' first TNA title reign. Obviously, now they're in their second after like what 5+ years or 10 years, maybe I think, of not being a tag team.
yeah, but yeah, like how y'all mentioned, you have to pretty much keep constantly watching WWE to get a point of what's going on.
But then I'd argue they do a lot for casual fans. Like they bring back Goldberg and Lesnar and The Rock, obviously in recent years, to kind of go, oh, you remember these people?
Yeah.
I think like let's go back to my point about promotion. Like WWE, they like their taglines, they like their first evers, they know when they get something which, even if we like it or don't like it or agree with it or don't agree with it, when they get something in their heads and they think it sounds cool or it can look cool, they will promote the fuck out of it to make sure that it is watched at least by someone. And sometimes the end product doesn't deliver, you know. Sometimes it's like meh, and they often just screw it with bad booking in the end. But on the most part, that's basically the bread and butter. In terms of American wrestling, though, it's weird because obviously it was how a lot of people in the UK, like obviously we're doing Worlds Collide, so we might as well touch upon our experience over here. It is because WWE, they had a deal with our kind of big satellite subscription service is called Sky. They were one of the first things to be on Sky TV back when it launched in '89. One of the first few sports to basically sign up to be with Sky Sports, even before the Premier League, which is our football, not soccer, football. We actually, they kick the ball with their feet. But anyway, WWE was one of the first things to sign with it. So American wrestling kind of been ingrained in like British culture for a long time. And obviously the SummerSlam over here in '92. They started doing UK tours, I believe in the mid '90s, like '97, '98, and then we had like UK exclusive pay-per-view events. Which, as a wrestling fan, like I'm older than Josh by a little bit, but as a fan,
We don't disclose the difference.
Yeah, as it's not what people think, but like that's how I was introduced to kind of wrestling because you'd see American wrestlers on TV regularly, and then you'd see them tour over here regularly. And it coincided with, sadly, the British wrestling scene going through a just tragic time where there wasn't stars being made. And why would you bother kind of going to a British show at the time, at least, when you go to the WWE, you had the lights, the staging, and then, like you said, like the wrestlers who were just larger than life. Why would you bother going to, a campsite when you can go to, trailer park probably as you guys have saw them, like campsite to watch wrestling when you can watch it in like an arena. It's a no-brainer for a lot of people. And it's still the case now, to be fair, sadly.
Yeah, but if you're on like a camping holiday or a caravanning holiday, you can't beat just casually going down to the clubhouse, as we call it, and watching a wrestling show. Because the thing with those shows is there's no storyline, it's just wrestling. You've got a bad guy, you've got a good guy, they fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Same thing with heavy metal, right, Chase? Heavy metal's pretty much the same thing.
Our we have our one of it's like a reoccurring thing on the show where I'm the world's biggest mark for our local independent wrestling promotion, heavy metal wrestling.
Local. Okay.
You're local.
Oh, my local.
Yeah.
Anyway, here in San Antonio, our promotion, heavy metal wrestling, a lot of the shows is just like, hey, here are these two guys, and they're gonna fight. Like, Julio, I'm sure you remember, big strong boy. What's his name? Ethan Price, right? You know what I'm thinking about? It was him and Great Scott. Literally, the match was just, hey, this guy hasn't been in Texas for a while, so he's just gonna fight this guy. Have fun. Meanwhile,
they delivered a good match.
Granted,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. But also, I mean, they do stories here and there, like Luigi Primo and Great Scott fighting over pineapple on pizza.
Oh,
these are real things. But it's also, again, it's just sometimes like, like you guys mentioned, like here are these two guys. Here's good guy. Here's bad guy. End of story. Have enjoy.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we laugh at that, the pizza pineapple thing, but I mean, Edge and Booker T had a whole WrestleMania program, didn't they, over a shampoo commercial? So it's not like the big guys aren't afraid to do that kind of stuff. And Jericho and what's his name, Orange Cassidy, that dickhead.
Orange Cassidy.
They're having a feud over having a match for which would have been like a mimosa bowl or something, or so it's not without kind of thing. But I guess do you guys I guess you have more access. I mean, the thing is, there's never been at the moment in time, to be fair, there's never been a better time. Obviously, pre-Global Bastard, there's never been a better time to be a wrestling fan than there is in the last few years in terms of this content that we get. When you add up, obviously streaming services, live events, etc. I think at one point over here there were over 200 active wrestling promotions who are defined as active by they've had a show in the last 12 months. And going back to when I was a kid, and I was literally waiting for either WWE to come over, or there'd be wrestling at the Fairfield Halls by a promotion called All Star Wrestling, and
I've heard of them.
They came maybe twice a year. They came maybe twice a year, and you'd get a few wrestlers that, and there'd be sometimes another smaller promotion that would come nearby too. But now, again, pre-Global Bastard, on any given kind of weekend at some part of the country, even we just take the southeast, there'd be potentially, especially in peak season, what would be in at the moment, you'd potentially be seeing 6, 7, 8 shows a weekend, and it'd be quite common. But obviously, and I guess it's similar in America where there's so much wrestling, I guess, that goes on every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
The issue in my area is... Who's going first?
You can go, Josh.
To be fair, mine's going to take 5 seconds. The issue with my area where I live is the only wrestling promotion that comes here is DKW. Lucas, as you know. Literally 5 minutes down the road from me. But
you get All-Star in Basildon at the town gate.
Not very often.
Twice a year, I think.
And they're not very good. In Towngate, they're not very good. But yeah, there's 2 promotions that come here, and it's what? You're here once or twice a year, maybe 3 times if I'm lucky. What I find bizarre is I've lived here all my life. About the same time DKW's been a thing, actually.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a DKW show in London ever. I've never watched one.
I know you keep me busy every time we're here.
Yeah,
But,
which is bizarre.
But yeah.
See, and that's crazy because, like, on the contrary, like here in San Antonio, like we have like many promotions, all the way from just stuff like with the audience of like 5-10 people to shows where it's like, like for example, one of our quote unquote top promotions, River City Wrestling, RCW, like they're doing shows at like this Retama Park, which is pretty much like a horse racing track, pretty much. Of course we have heavy metal where they do mostly like the dive bar shows, and of course we have just different random matches. Like for example, we at Alamo City Comic Con, they'll just randomly have wrestling, or you'll see like, oh yeah, at this place, at this bar, or at this venue, there's gonna be some wrestling. Like pick and choose like what promotion you want to go to. You want to go to the one that's 18 and up for adults only. You want to go for the family friendly one. Do you want the Deathmatch? Do you want the Lucha show? Like, there's a variety to pick and choose.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think like Josh obviously, no, Josh is making it sound a bit more dramatic than it is. I think, even though, like, yes, in terms of his exact precise location, he doesn't get it, but in terms of what I guess we call a county over here, Josh lives in the county of Essex. I don't know what the equivalent is in America, but Essex basically is a county. It's built up with lots of small towns. But in terms of Essex as a county, Essex gets a lot of shows. And even close to Josh, like there'd be, Southend gets run near him. Same place which your audience have no idea where they are, I guess. But within the county of Essex, there are a lot of shows taking place. Just happens to be that just not where Josh lives.
Yeah, I just mean like within my town.
Yeah, like within your town. But
yeah.
I think something which, and this brings me on to the next point though, like I think something which I find interesting, and this is just a general point, not just about wrestling, but Americans seem to travel further for stuff than British people do. Like, I mean, I'm assuming you guys, like, do you go to shows in like different towns?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Julio especially.
It would be
Yeah.
for British guys, for British fans, it would be like it'd be like a one-off, like a big show. It would take for like Josh, for instance, he wouldn't go unless I invited him, like to do sound or whatever. He most likely, out of choice, wouldn't go to a show in Southend, let's say, which for him,
I wouldn't say out of choice, but more like it's quite far away for someone that doesn't drive.
Yeah, but I mean, from the distance-wise, what we're talking, maybe 45 minutes on the train.
45 minutes to an hour, depending on the train.
Yeah, on the train. But I think American fans are just a bit like, right, we're glad to just go, 3, 4, 5 hours in a car, like to go and watch some wrestling. And not just wrestling. I think even for like stuff like just entertainment, like if you want to go and see a concert, like you'll travel that time to go and see a concert if it was someone you wanted to see. And
I think the furthest I've been for a wrestling show is Portugal.
Yeah, but that was you had like a little break around it, didn't you? You didn't just go.
I was there for seminars and a show, but even then I was helping out on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like I don't know. Like your guys' thoughts.
Like how you mentioned, and Chase mentioned a while ago, me and Zilla are usually the ones that have to. Well, first of all, there is wrestling here, like I mentioned. There's predominantly a lot of lucha stuff around here. I would tell you there's about like 4 or 5 lucha promotions down here, and I would say like 3 of them are pretty much American wrestling, which was Wrestling Revolution. They run shows every Fridays at Cine Ray. Well, they don't now because of the pandemic. And there's also Texas Wrestling League. They bring various talents. They bring a lot of various talents. They usually run like once a month or I don't know. I don't remember how much to do it. And then there's another one that just popped up, but I forgot the name of it. But if you want to go like to big shows, to better wrestling or whatever, If you want to see us in person, we actually have to like travel out. Usually my area, the thing with my area is it's kind of funny that we pretty much live in the southernest tip of Texas, the United States, pretty much. And so since everything's connected to Mexico, there's the towns. And if you want to go like to Corpus or San Antonio, you have to pass like this like pretty much road of emptiness, of nothing for like 2 hours. Like if you want to go to Corpus, you have to just pass through a road of just pure landfills for like 2 hours. And then as well, like you want to go to San Antonio, that's 4 hours. Austin, 5 hours. You want to go to Laredo, which is another border city, but more to the west, northwest. That's about 3 hours. Yeah, and it's also not just wrestling. It's an entertainment in general. Because in my area, you don't really find it's not really of a big popular area. So if you want to go out, you pretty have to like, literally travel about like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. Farthest I've gone was probably Dallas, which is an 8 hour drive from where I live.
Wow, yeah, I think British fans like some do. Don't get me wrong, like they follow promotions or whatever. But I think on the whole, it's just a different attitude we have. I think it extends to our holiday/vacation mentality, whereas we will leave our country to go on holiday. You know, like we go to Spain, or I went to Italy just recently, places like that. And obviously, again, we are talking pre-global bastard and that, but Americans are very much happy to be like, if you guys live in Texas, you'll be like, well, we're happy to drive or fly to like New York, California, and go on holiday like there. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to wrestling shows, where you know we would, as Brits, we travel over for WrestleMania, potentially, or we travel over for big American promotions that tour, obviously around big events and stuff. But in our country, it's like, okay, let's just go and see it when it's like close to us, kind of thing, you know. And maybe travel up for like 1 or 2 shows. But I think it just shows up we're different as a culture, I guess. But back to American wrestling in particular, like, I think something which we kind of have to mention, I feel when talking about American wrestling, is how mainstream they made it. And even though it's less popular now than it was, it still is just unbelievable that WWE and their production got it to the level that it is at the moment. And I guess in terms of style, like I kept thinking about this as everyone's been speaking, and I think the only kind of thing I think that the Americans have done is they decided to start making moves not matter as much. Whereas again, we got the Japanese of very much presentation, very much sport-based presentation. The Lucha Libre has a style which obviously, even though it's more entertaining, but it still kind of has a style. But the Americans kind of started making moves and stuff not matter as much. So like, obviously the extreme example last year in the Cell with Rollins and the Stomp. It's like with the Fiend, it's like, well, you're doing like 10 stomps, so it now makes the move meaningless because there's all this logic that goes on. Like, obviously, so Braun Strowman beat Goldberg at WrestleMania, but he couldn't beat Brock Lesnar, who Goldberg beat at Survivor Series a few years ago, and Roman Reigns beat Brock Lesnar, but then couldn't beat other people. So it's all this kind of stuff that goes on, which WWE in particular and American wrestling in particular is just like, we don't care about that stuff. We need the best story for now. And that sometimes means that moves just go out the window, sadly. Mm-hmm. The meaning of the move, goes out the window.
Now,
go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I was
so
gonna say,
I'm also.
Anyway.
I am kind of glad y'all brought up the differences between us American fans and y'all British fans. There is, when Julio first came up to me and was like, hey, we're doing this show with these guys from the UK. The one thing I really want to talk to y'all about is how, I wouldn't say starkly different, but how different, wrong choice of words, but how different like our crowds are compared to y'all's crowds. Like I told him the perfect example is I actually went to the NXT Worlds Collide show in Houston, and I had a whole section of these guys from Britain, and just just going, I won't say ape shit, but fully investing themselves. Like, I've noticed, y'all do chants, y'all do songs, like y'all are more like reserved. Meanwhile, like over here, like we'll be hurling insults at people, we'll just shout shit just to shout shit. Certain fans want to be part of the show and hijack the show. Like, what do y'all kind of see as like any differences or similarities between like the UK and British and American fans?
I don't know many differences / similarities, but I can tell you one thing: the British fucking love their chants. Oh my god! Right, here is a very common one. There are two very common ones that I've noticed, especially with mainly Progress Wrestling and NXT UK: Zach Gibson and Tyler Bate. Tyler Bate on his social media, whenever he goes to the gym, sometimes he'll like hashtag it as in big strong boy, but spelled with BOI instead of BOY, and that shows if he's competing and doing like a swing, like you know what Cesaro does, the swing. Yeah, he'll do that, and they'll be chanting like big strong boy at like the top of their lungs, and then. Apparently, a lot of wrestling fans hate Zach Gibson. I don't know if you know Zach Gibson from NXT UK, but they have a chant where they go that they'll take a shoe off and they'll go, "Take your shoes off if you hate Gibson."
What?
Take your shoes off if you hate Gibson, and it's hilarious.
That's awesome.
I think that's the same with all sports in England. Is they love their chants. If they can chant, they're going to.
Yeah, I think with British fans, like we get involved differently is the correct way. I think like stuff like you put your shoe up if you hate Zach Gibson, and we've got some very bespoke chants. One that I don't know how you didn't mention it, Josh. It happens every time I go to see Raw SmackDown the O2. At some point, this chant will happen, and once I say it, Josh will probably make that kind of believe, kind of oh my god kind of sound. Is the "Who are your chants?" Happens every time in England. Like
that is a good point.
I could literally go back on the network and watch a Raw, not knowing that it's from England, and just know the minute I hear "Who are you" chant, that we're in England. And another chant that was happening, it's now not happening because the song's lost popularity, was the "Hey Baby" chant. But now they do it, but with people.
For Bailey.
Yeah, they did it for Bailey, didn't they? Like they.
Yeah.
There's a song by like an annoying DJ called DJ Otzi, and it was #1 in our charts about 20 years ago. And it's one of those songs that for some reason it just never stopped being popular. And
you can't go to a British party and not hear that song.
Yeah, it's always played. And the melody of it is basically hey, hey baby, ooh, I wanna know. Okay, that's all I sing because we don't want to get
It's literally called "Hey Baby" by DJ
anyway,
Otzi.
Yeah, like it gets used for like a lot of. If you've got a 2-syllable name, essentially, you can like the fans will chant it along, and then like we're more quirky, I think, and that just shows kind of how we are as people, I guess. And the stupid stuff will be the stuff that we chant. I mean, sadly, something which we have seemed to have adopted in the last few years, which I think, while we're talking about fans, I'd like to discuss, is the racial chants. I don't know what happened. I don't know where it started because it happens in America, happens over here too. Someone one day decided I'm going to be a racist prick at an event, and it just spread like wildfire. And a few years ago, you had the incident over here with Naomi when she was getting racial chants, and I know American fans have had it even on NXT. I think they've had it about last year or something. They had to ban the groups of fans and stuff. But like, sadly, that's an issue which has propped up over the past few years with fans, kind of globally. So I do think, to an extent, that it shows that there is, sadly, even though it's negative, there is like a global fan base and a global fan behaviour that kind of happens, because obviously it was happening kind of worldwide. But another thing I think which is different here is the presentation of shows and the venues, because I think whereas over in America it's very common to see shows in like, you know, high school, or as we'd call it over here, secondary school kind of gymnasiums, as well as like you mentioned about, I guess you get like a lot of shows happening like baseball stadiums, like not necessarily this whole stadium, but like in the smaller kind of in the bleachers and the ring kind of in the middle on like a field.
Well, they had the Royal Rumble in a baseball stadium last year
Yeah,
or the year
yeah,
before,
the
didn't
last
they?
couple of years, yeah, that's where
Home of the Astros.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, that's like 60,000 fans, but you get a lot of smaller shows that happen just with bleachers and stuff. Whereas over here, it pretty much is like what we'd call like community centres. You very rarely get shows in schools. Like, schools don't really like it. And
There's a lot more insurance that comes with schools in the UK, I've noticed.
yeah, there's a lot of issues, and like schools don't really like them. Is the short answer to it. They don't need to give them ins and outs, but I think the presentation of it is just very different. And whereas I guess like even when they talk on network DVDs about, you know, we talk about people like maybe AJ Styles, who talks about these days on the starting out. He's like, oh, I was wrestling in high school gyms in front of like 200 people, saying it as a bad thing, like, well, not bad, but like a small, making it seem small. Over here, like a lot of indie promotions, that will be a good draw for them.
They'd be lucky to get that.
Yeah.
Now I think of it, in most of the schools that have wrestling shows, I don't think it could fit 200 people and a wrestling ring.
Probably not, no.
But
It is in America, though.
yeah, just one quick thing going back to the chants. It's not really a chant, but one thing I've noticed that we do like doing in Britain is when the announcer goes, "This match is scheduled for one fall," he will pause or she will pause, and the fans will go, "One fall" at the top of their lungs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You get that in the US as well, but it's definitely a massive thing in the UK. Like the couple times that I emceed, that happened. I think that is it's a nice touch. I like it when fans get involved in that sense with the announcer as well.
Right, and again going back to the chants, like, because I mean, of course, we here in America, like, we have our chants too, you know, but it's not like full blown songs. You know, it's like, you know, the classic, you know, "You fucked up" or "You sick fuck." Most I realize
CZW,
as
you
I
get
say,
CZ dub.
as I mentioned that, I kind of also realize we do say "fuck" a lot in our chants, but anyway, that's besides the point. Y'all are more like you kind of mentioned with the "Oh Baby" song, like y'all are more like song based, as we're more like phrase based. If you kind of catch my drift.
We're more British football chants as well, I've noticed.
Yeah, like the one that mainly comes to mind is like, because I'm a huge like British punk rock fan, so like the one that instantly comes to my mind is "Take 'Em All," you know, from Coxbar. That's personally my favorite one.
Yeah, I think like a lot of our kind of humor comes from popular culture. I guess both sides of the planet, I guess that happens. But I think us Brits are very like, we're always up for like a good night out. I guess that's one of the things too, I guess, to remember.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's lots of differences. But I think that we are kind of united as kind of one kind of fan base, like, you know, more recently, definitely. With obviously, basically now, like some of the UK stuff's going on the network. Like, you guys have a chance to obviously see it in some capacity. I don't know how much WWE have edited out. And obviously the fact that most stuff's on streaming now anyway, so, or on YouTube, so, which is global. And so you guys can obviously watch stuff from Britain and vice versa. You know, we watch stuff from America. But I think the American wrestling had a massive impact on British wrestling, like throughout history. Like we touched on episode 1 when I said about a lot of tribute shows took place. We had our own kind of UK Undertaker, UK Rey Mysterios, UK Dudley Boys. We had a lot of promotions after ECW folded in like the early 2000s. Hardcore became a major attraction, so there was a lot of, and even down to the fact that most promotions in the world even use initialisms. They use the three letters like WWE, like TNA when it was TNA, DKW which I run, ICW which you mentioned on the hardcore stuff, CZW, all these promotions started this three letter initialisms, promotions, to the point where when promotions don't have initialisms, you do have to be like, oh, are you sure this is wrestling? Like at one point, like Progress Wrestling had to have wrestling in the name. People know it's wrestling. Do you know what I mean? Always, Progress. What's that mean? Is that a TV show? Is that a Netflix series? Is that a movie coming out in the MCU? That doesn't mean anything.
Well, do you remember when What Culture made their promotion What Culture Pro Wrestling, and everyone's like, fuck me, that's a mouthful. Even their abbreviation was a mouthful, WCPW.
Yeah, because so many with W's in it, I think.
Like, how can you have so many syllables in an abbreviation still?
Yeah, but I mean, I think, so there's a lot we've taken from American wrestling, and even the fact that promotions like my own, like DKW, we do storylines. We do dusty finishes, dodgy finishes and stuff to matches, which again, like the sports entertainment side of things, that when I see it, they made it more interesting, because I think, like, no disrespect to Japan or to any other style, but I think like presenting it as real can also make it boring. But presenting it as fake and like, and knowing that there's always different options, and sometimes, don't get me wrong, they've dried that well up so many times now with these dodgy finishes. Don't get me wrong, but it is kind of like a holy shit kind of thing. Like when you see stuff happen, like obviously presenting it as real, like Japan could never pull off like Roman Reigns returning to beat up two people after a match. It's the way they did, or how they've done stuff like, particularly with the Fiend in the past like year or so. Like, did we have that kind of? It's that kind of coolness, and it's what we used to call water cooler talk, but again now is called going viral. The whole, like, they want people to be talking about it the next day. Always cool little moments, and that's how I think about wrestling too. It's more moments than matches to an extent.
On the topic of storylines, quickly, we do need to give credit where it's due to Japan, to especially New Japan Pro Wrestling, in the sense of they don't have major storylines, but their factions within the promotion do tell a story. Like, especially Bullet Club have kind of an internal storyline going along with them, and Contra and other ones that I'm not going to even attempt to say, because I will butcher the pronunciation and probably piss someone off. But that being said, places like New Japan Pro Wrestling do need that little bit of credit where it's due, for the fact that they're not story driven, but the factions they have within them are kind of story driven.
Yeah, I get that.
And they have a rich history behind them.
I get that.
Right. Julio, is there anything you want to add before we get into our final segment?
I think we're good. We're gonna go to a segment. We usually have for our wrestling guests, and we'll let our guests do it. What do you think, Chase?
Oh, fucking hell, there's interaction.
Sounds good. So, as I kind of mentioned on the first part, we have a segment on our show where I'll get to it. So, it's actually a two-parter segment. It's, like I said, a little bit similar to the pipe bomb challenge, but the first part is called Roast This Pig. So what we're gonna have y'all do, y'all can either decide, either do both of y'all as one, or you could do each individual one. We're going to give y'all a topic of our choosing, and we're gonna have y'all cut a 60-second promo on it.
Fuck! I knew the promo challenge would come back to bite me in the ass.
So shall we both do one then, Josh?
Huh?
Shall we both do one then?
Yeah, sure.
Best one or something, or?
Let's both do one.
Oh, ooh, interesting.
At least then, if we look a fool, we look a fool together.
Captain goes down the ship.
Yeah.
I think this is the second time we've had someone our guest do a promo together.
But
Let's see.
we're the first
Wait,
Brits.
I'll say the first British promo guests. Fuck, I've lost my train of thought like halfway through. Anyway, let's see. Since at the time of the recording, tonight is WWE Payback, we're gonna have y'all cut a 60-second promo on the pay-per-view itself. Y'all can hype up the matches. Y'all can bury the matches. Y'all can pick a specific talent. Don't tell us what you're going to do. Just let us know when you're ready.
Okay, who wants to go? Who do you want to go first?
Hold on. Wait. So we can either shit on it or hype it up.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do whatever you want to do. Just let me know when y'all are ready, okay?
Lucas,
I'm
we're
ready.
British. Let's do what we do best.
Okay, so I'll go first then.
Okay.
All right. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
So here we have Payback. WWE were somehow presenting a pay-per-view a week after SummerSlam, which meant to be the biggest part of the summer. The question is though, the summer's still going on. So is now Payback the after party to SummerSlam? I think with WWE, the problem they have here is that there's too many bloody matches. And tonight we're seeing matches which some of them don't really need to be on a pay-per-view. Let's be real. You know, Matt Riddle and King Corbin, sort that shit out on SmackDown. You know, we don't need to see it on pay-per-view. But the Universal Championship match, triple threat, let's be real here. Braun Strowman is taking the pin and is going back to obscurity as he should never been the Universal Champion in the first place, following a reign which has been, quite frankly, one of the most shit reigns there's ever been in history. Also feel very strongly that the women, though, must praise them. They've been a fantastic asset to WWE over the past few months, particularly Sasha Banks and Bayley. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the women's tag team match. I do feel a bit sorry, though, for the Iconics further down the card, as I think they got a bit of a rough deal out of this, as a lot of the stuff that Bayley and Sasha are doing, their Iconics were doing about 2 years ago, let's be real. But look, Payback, it doesn't really need to happen. But as we're wrestling fans, we're all going to sit and watch it anyway. And then on social media, we're going to bitch and we're going to moan. And for some reason, even after all of that, we're all then going to sit and watch Raw tomorrow night, despite what the ratings may say. The hardcore fans, the ones that are on the internet, typing on their keyboards, acting like the Billy Big Bollocks, they're the people who are still watching and buying the product. So in some ways, what WWE are doing are telling their fan base to go fuck themselves. And so, as much as I want to say fuck Payback, I know that at the end of the day, I'm still invested, I'm still watching. And so, really, Payback is telling me to fuck off. Out.
Mic drop. So what happens now? Do you tell him what you thought, or?
Yo, Chase usually does, but I think he's pulling another shattered glass. But
I actually was. I was literally having a full blown conversation with Josh. I was like, yeah, Josh. I was like, yeah, yo. I was like, you went 53 seconds over, and then I was like, is no one gonna acknowledge that? And then I looked down. I'm like, oh shit, I still on mute.
Minutes.
Almost 2 minutes. Not bad.
Yeah. Sorry.
So no. That's why I was like, I'm not gonna stop this. This is too good. Now, here we go to the second part. The second part, I'm sure y'all are gonna love. It is called Roast This Host.
Jesus
Ooh.
Christ.
Y'all are going to y'all are gonna cut a 60-second promo roasting me or Julio, or you can do both of us. Collectively. Don't tell us who.
Okay.
Just let us know when y'all are ready, and we'll just roll punches.
So Lucas,
Yeah.
I will take this one because you got the last one.
Yeah.
I just need to ask one very important question.
What's up?
Are there limits to this?
Nah.
You can say whatever you want. No hold
That
barred.
works.
How politically correct do I need to be?
You can be as politically incorrect as you want, honestly. Just let me know when
Okay.
you're ready, Josh, and I'll count you down.
I think I'm ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay. So let's get this straight, Chase. We've invited WrestleVlogs to join us beforehand. This was entirely my idea. It's my brainchild here. And Julio tells me he's bringing on some big time wrestler within your area. I'm like, oh, okay, sweet, cool. So answer me this: why have we got a ponytail wearing dildo holder who's gluing thumbtacks to them as some form of censorship instead of this wrestler who's meant to be a champion for your local promotion? How has this worked? You wagered your ponytail earlier on in the episode, so I don't see why you don't just cut it off already, because I've seen it. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed already. But explain me this. You're carrying around this dildo. Is that some form of compensation for making up for what your ex left behind? Pure silence now.
Oh, yo, that's a fucking 10 right there.
Hold up. I'm just gonna point out 2 things. 1, that was fucking amazing. 2, Josh just made double history because that is the first time I've ever been single-handedly roasted on the show. Like all the time we've been roasted, it's either Julio or all of us as a collective. I've never been singled out, but damn it, I'm glad it's Josh that singled me out.
I can tell you don't know whether to be offended about what I said or the fact that it was only about you.
Oh no, like I'm all for it. I think I thought it was fucking awesome. I'm a person, like I can take a joke about, like I make fun of myself. When he said the ponytail, I was like, oh, that's a good one.
I feel like I've mentioned a lot of things that we've covered in the last 2 episodes as well.
Like the dildo.
The dildo, the wagering your ponytail, your ex.
Mm-hmm.
And
Damn.
the fact that Julio did say that he was potentially bringing on a wrestler.
Yeah, unfortunately, Principe couldn't join us.
He's too good for us.
Unfortunately.
He was actually going to be the Lucha expert, but unfortunately he had to do some other stuff. But
Convenient,
another time or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do another special.
Yeah, but let me see here. Okay.
I think that's
we're almost wrapping it up, but what's it called? We talked. Me and Josh talked about exchanging talent, letting people just get into the shows. So we'll bring you some. We'll recommend you some good talent, Josh, so you could go check them out. Get them here from the state. We have a bucket list of great talent to
Lucas, I'm sure we have plenty of people that we can suggest to WrestleVlogs over here.
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, when wrestling restarts, obviously, but properly.
Because obviously we're not allowed to at the moment.
Yeah,
we're still grounded. But I think it's safe to say I may have won that segment.
without a doubt. You're up there as one of the best, if not the best roast we've ever had.
That's why you always have a British person on your show at some point or another. We're brilliant at complaining about things.
I also got to say, that was easily the most British promo I've ever heard in my life, like insult I've ever had in my life. Like, because I've had like just regular people just be like, oh fuck you, you piece of shit. But someone to get in the nitty gritty and insult. I can't get over how fucking awesome. Oh man,
it's a good insult.
There is. I do have one last request. Can we get y'all real quick? Can we get y'all to say "damn, Paul"?
Damn, Paul.
Damn, Paul.
Yeah.
Damn is just not a British
man.
word that works. Let's be honest.
It's not, but damn, Paul.
Damn is definitely more of an American thing.
Mm-hmm. Man.
It's like how we can say bastard better than America.
How would y'all put y'all spin on it? Yeah. How would y'all put y'all's like British spin on damn Paul?
For fuck's sake, Paul.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Or, I guess we got to say bloody hell, Paul.
Yeah, or bloody hell, yeah. It depends on where in England you're from.
Oh, that's great.
Damn,
That's going into our highlight reel of all of our guests we've had say damn Paul.
Yay!
All right, to wrap it up, any social medias you guys have? Where can they see the first part once again? Where can they see all the other episodes from your show?
So the easiest way to find all of our other episodes is literally just go straight to our YouTube channel. Everything is there from season 1 all the way through to season 2, and even our prediction shows. Obviously, they're prediction shows. The pay-per-views for those are long gone, but we do have some funny moments in those.
Yeah.
In regards to social media, we've got Facebook pages already, along with Facebook pages and more Facebook pages, because we're stuck on Facebook. But yeah, Facebook and YouTube are the best places to go.
All right, any final thoughts you guys want to give up?
I'd like to say thank you guys for having us. It's been a blast, and we're definitely.
And thanks for joining us as well.
Thank you for joining us in our episode, and obviously, we look forward to seeing when this goes out, like what people make us on the shit we've been saying today. Definitely interested in doing some more stuff for you guys in the future. But thank you for having us. And all wrestling is great. Like, today, whether you like American style, whether you like Lucha Libre, whether you like Japanese, whether you like whatever it may be. Like, let's all as a community come together and decide that let's not be dickheads anymore. Let's leave that to Star Wars fans to moan about stuff. Like, let's all get on as a community. And with wrestling starting to come back in certain parts of the world now, like, let's not shit on everything. Let's give WWE a chance. Let's give Impact a chance. AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan, British promotions like Progress. Give them all a chance and give people, like, make it enjoyable again. To be a fan, because I think sometimes the internet has ruined some of that for us as fans. And let's bring it back to the days of being wowed and being excited about it. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I think that is one key thing is the fans. A lot of wrestling fans are so hung up on the idea of one promotion rules all. Like, this isn't fucking football, like, or any sport, any other sport. Wrestling is nothing like any other sport. Like, you can't follow one team or promotion and solely follow them. Like, there are so many different things to wrestling that you can't not focus on everything. Like, it's very easy to be hung up on just WWE and be like, WWE is the master race, is the be-all. Fuck, that went really deep, really quick. It is the be-all and end-all of wrestling. It's not. Wrestling is the be-all and end-all of wrestling. Oh, bye, Lucas.
Damn, Paul.
For fuck's sake, Lucas.
You have to go.
Huh?
I was like, all right, start wrapping it up. He had to go. He was putting on the chat. Yeah, I was like, well, let's wrap it up. But yeah, I want to say thank you guys for being a part of the show. Like I said, we could work something, working relationship with you guys. Get you recommend you some talent, and you guys recommend us some us. And
of course,
we don't usually do podcasts, but since Rona, we're trying to get some other content out.
Well, I mentioned this before, and I think, Julio, we should definitely kind of announce this as a thing. But in the future, it won't be anytime soon. It will probably be later next year. Me and Julio, and probably Chase and the rest of the gang, are looking at me going over there for a little while and doing like a road trip of Texas promotions, and you guys doing the same and coming over here.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, man.
Obviously, if Lucas would like to join us, he is more than welcome. But it seems that I am more the traveling guy.
Yeah, man. Right here, it's you're gonna find wrestling like you've never seen it before.
Yeah, and I've no doubt you've probably missed out on a fair amount of British wrestling, considering you're not in Britain.
Yeah.
That may be a key element. Yeah, we've been here for almost 2.5 hours.
I know. I didn't expect it to go this long. Damn, but I'm
Yeah.
fuck.
But this has been a special 2-part episode, so I'm sure the viewers will not complain about extra content.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Hey, if people ask for it, we can even do joint merch.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see what working relationships happen later on. But well, Lucas left. But I want to thank you, Josh, and as well as Lucas, for joining us in the show. It's a pretty fun episode. I've been waiting it for about a month. I think you reached in the day for about a month, and it went by quick. Right when you told me, right when you told me, I was like, it's already the week, it's already the day. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I scrolled past your Facebook feed and saw the WrestleVlogs thing, and I thought, oh wait, hang on, they've got a podcast as well. I was like, why don't we do a joint episode? Like, where's the harm?
Yeah.
And look where we are. But that was like a month and a bit ago, I think.
And it worked perfect.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, it's 11:15 at night here in the UK, so I think it's about time that we called it a day.
Yeah. I want to thank you for joining us here. We hope to see you right here in the great state of Texas.
Oh, one day. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been a blast, and I've no doubt that Lucas appreciates it as well.
Oh, yeah. Take it easy.
We'll treat you out to some authentic Mexican tacos.
Oh, yeah.
I love Taco Bell in the UK, but I bet it's nowhere near as good as the authentic.
Oh, just wait. Are you a beer drinker at all, Josh?
Not really. To be fair, I don't really drink cider or beer very often. I'm more of a spirits guy. Specifically tequila.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Have you ever had a margarita before, Josh?
I have had a margarita before, yes.
But have you had a Texas margarita?
Obviously not.
You're going to.
I mean, Julio, you're old enough now. Like, you're allowed to drink now.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Right. Anyway, we're rambling again.
Yeah. Yep. Well, let's just shoot the shit on just a different on another episode one day.
Yeah, let's do it.
But right on, like I said, Josh and Lucas want to shout out you guys so much. Everyone who's watching at home, please go check them out. They were amazing people to talk to, super fun guests. Definitely check them out. And if y'all don't want to see anything else, let us know. If y'all don't, too bad. We're gonna do it. Well. If y'all don't want to see them, too bad. You're gonna see them anyway because we love them.
Yay! Quick before we wrap it up, any of you guys that have come over from the Talking Crap podcast, stick it down in the comments. Every interaction helps the channels in a massive way. But yeah, if you've come from the Talking Crap podcast, stick it in the comments. Let them know you're from Britain.
Hell yeah! And this is a joint thing we're doing just to support each other, not to bash each other. Unlike other podcast promotions here in Texas, we don't want to mention their names. They apparently want to work together, but at the end they always bash another podcast. But here in WrestleVlogs, we work with anybody, and here's the proof that we do. To wrap it up, follow us on all social medias at WrestleVlogs, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course on YouTube. I want to thank you, Josh, for being here.
Much appreciated the invite.
And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Take it easy.
All right, take it easy, Josh. Stay safe, brother.
You do.